In this episode, I sit down for a care conversation with Sheridan Norrey, the CEO and owner of LifeLibrary. We discuss how LifeLibrary's forward-thinking Life Story app is enhancing person-centred care in the UK, whilst also improving staff satisfaction and strengthening employer brands within the care sector. We go through the benefits of using LifeLibrary for care home residents, the families, and care homes themselves. Sheridan also gives his views on the future of the care industry and the role technology can play in better dementia care moving forward. We hope you enjoyed this episode. So, Sheridan, your career has kind of taken quite a journey from days working in finance and property development through to now founding LifeLibrary. Can you talk us through your career today?
Yeah, interestingly, we're here to talk about tech in the care industry, and I think the biggest take of this chat will be that we don't want tech to replace human touch. Unfortunately, I worked in finance, and tech was brought in to replace the human touch. So when I was made redundant sort of 10 years ago, it was tech algorithms who could do a lot better job than 10 of us sitting there on the desk. So I then didn't know what to do. So I was running in the gym, watching Homes Under the Hammer, saw how easy it looked. So I bought a couple of residential properties, developed those, had a 5-year career in that. Then it got tougher, more people watching Homes Under the Hammer. So a friend of mine works for CBRE, he's head of social care, and he said, why don't you look at finding land and property for care homes? Same thing, but just bigger numbers. So I looked at various sites, and it was on that journey when someone said to me, there's 800,000 people in care homes alone. I did the quick math, and that's 64 million years worth of stories in our care homes. Wow. And that number blew my mind. And I thought, how can I use those? It was a sort of light bulb moment. Initial idea was to link care homes and the experience to schools, so living encyclopedia. Then it was linking the elderly knowledge to startups. How could all that knowledge, accountancy, marketing, finance in the homes help young startups like myself? And then I thought, why don't I just use stories, experiences, just to help the person who's lived them?
That leads really nicely onto LifeLibrary's mission. So your mission, as you state on your website, is to preserve those personal stories and enhance care through storytelling. Why is it important for care homes to do this today?
I think it's always been important. I don't think LifeLibrary is, a groundbreaking piece of technology that can't be copied. I'm not that naive, but I think as a nation, as a human race, especially in England, we've stopped talking about our stories, about our histories. It's almost a bit of an embarrassment what we used to do. And I think those in sort of later years, elderly, have got a huge reservoir of stuff. And I remember my grandparents giving slideshows of holidays, etc. And I must have sat there and go, oh, what am I doing? It's boring. But I now look back and I see the delight on their faces. It wasn't about, them telling this. It was them reliving that experience. And I think, for those living in care homes or in domiciliary care or being cared for at home with families, just talking about things. And I think as you get older, especially with the journey with dementia, you remember the things that happened a long time ago. And if the homes can't find those stories or experiences, it's very hard to know the whole person. And I think that is the key and the goal of LifeLibrary is for anyone in care and who they're caring for to know the whole person. There's one great example where we showed a picture that George was 90, and we showed a picture of him at 18 in the army, and the carers were like, he was young? I was like, yes, he was young. And then suddenly they just had this little burst of energy. It might have been short-lived, but that's the idea of LifeLibrary, is for those little bursts of energy to carry on during the day.
Yeah, I mean, as a marketer, marketing is storytelling to people, and it's so powerful, this tool, and you can immediately see the benefits for care homes. But for you, how does LifeLibrary align with your personal vision of helping improve the care industry?
I think I've been into lots of care homes in the last 6 months to a year, and one thing that feedback from carers, managers, is they struggle with making the home or the domiciliary agency more social. it's not just about the carers knowing the residents. It's about the managers knowing the residents. It's about the catering team knowing more about the likes and dislikes. And I think there are homes there where there will be someone sitting 20 meters away from someone for 2 years, and they've got lots of experiences and hobbies in line. And it's so hard at the moment to cross-match, reference interests, stories, and very simple, like I say, those micro opportunities for events. It doesn't have to be grand events that cost money. If you look on LifeLibrary, we now have this interest match page where the families, residents, carers put in all the hobbies and interests of 100 people in a care home, and it now cross-matches it. So a carer that morning can say, oh, I've got 10 people who like swimming. Why don't I sit them together for lunch? The Olympic swimming is on now. Why don't we put that on? Why don't we start a discussion about swimming? And that's the goal, is to make every environment more social.
Yeah, and it helps care homes with their person-centred care. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Before we can continue with the benefits of LifeLibrary, can you just kind of explain how it works and what else it can offer care homes?
Yeah. Okay. So from the early days, it's obviously a paid-for platform, so we have to look at how it improves processes. So we sort of looked at how someone's onboarded. So at the moment, it's a long onboarding process. You've got foods, medication, likes, dislikes. Usually then the life story work is sort of at the bottom after a 2-hour, 3-hour session, and it sort of gets forgotten. It gets written and forgotten once. So one of the early things of LifeLibrary was the onboarding process. So if you know residents coming in 2 weeks' time, you can now send that family member a link to LifeLibrary. They sign up, and then they'll get 12, 15 questions, and they can spend time not only just with themselves and their loved one, but with the rest of the family. Can you give me any interest for grandma? What does she like doing? What she talk to you about? So you end up with a record and a picture of the person coming into the care home way before she's come in. So she walks through the door, and you say, oh, you used to have a cat called, Bob. I used to have a cat called Bob. And then suddenly you know them. And the best thing about this onboarding process, it's not fixed. So a lot of the way it's done now, it's done on a PDF or paper, scanned, put into the digital care plan. I'm not saying care homes never look at it again, but I'll probably be lying if I say that. Whereas this is live. So let's say I'm doing it for my grandma. I'm out with my brother in a month's time, and he says, oh, did you mention that she loves netball? And I go, hang on, I go on the app and put grandma loves netball. So it pings in the care home, and that adds to her interests. So that's the onboarding process, which I think also saves time, because rather than someone sit with the resident and family, it's done out of the care home and done a lot better. So when that's done, that's now onboarded. That can be copied into the digital care plan. That's the bit that CQC need. So now the families can start recording the life story of their loved one. So with LifeLibrary, you can add as many books as you want. And it is a virtual library. When you log on, you'll see the books named, dated. And so the carer can just pick a book off the virtual shelf, and it'll be Mum's Travelling, or Mum's Early Life, or Mum's Career. And there can be as many photos in there as you want to put in there. And each photo will have a story. So it's not just, oh, can you tell me about this picture? Because people living with dementia or early stages of dementia, they might forget what the picture was. So for a carer to show them a picture is very confusing. So you've got words. You can have up to 1,000 words per picture. We are in the process of adding voice recording to photos.
Right, okay.
Because what we've realized is that this also has a huge power for those with living with dementia. So we're going to add videos, voice memo, cognitive stimulation based around their memories. So at the moment, getting back to LifeLibrary, so you've got all these books of Mum's life. Another book in the library is a fixed book. It's called My New Memories. So at the moment, most care homes will record activities, photos of events, and put it on Facebook or Instagram. That's the way they communicate with the families. So what we do is we get all families to have a lead supporter. They're signed up by email from day one. They can then invite as many family members as they want as supporters. So we've got one in Nottingham that's got 9 family members, all adding to Grandma's story. One of them's in Wisconsin, so that's our only international user at the moment.
Nice.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So they then add to these stories. So as soon as now there's an event in the home, let's say you, like I said earlier about a micro event, you've got 10 of them together watching the swimming. The carer lifestyle lead can take a picture of that event, and what they do is then upload it to new memories. As soon as that's uploaded into new memories, every family member who's logged on will get an email. And we're now going for text notification as well because we want to drive family engagement. It will say, please log on. Grandma's done something wonderful. So you can log on, even on, the app on your phone. It's available in the Apple Store and Google Play. So you're on the train, you say, oh, look, Mum's swimming. Mum's watching the swimming. And then you can say, thank you at Care Home A. Mum looks very happy. I look forward to talking to her about this when I get in. So that's the feedback bit that ties into the CQC. As I said before, you've got the interest match, so you can cross-reference, I think, 100 different hobbies and interests,
Wow.
which makes it easier for Lifestyle to create those small events. And also, at the end of this, when the resident passes, the family get to keep that life story. So if you're in the care home for 3 years, it shouldn't be blank years. It should be those 3 years, how well they've lived. It's very important because they're the last 3 years that you remember of mum or dad's life. So it's very important to keep that. But the family then get to keep this as a download, or they can carry on adding to it.
Yeah.
What other features are there? Yeah, I think.
I mean, that's an amazing run through. And in terms of kind of benefits for care homes, a lot of it's clear, like the marketing, there's so much content, there's stories there that they can use across their website and social platforms. We'll come on to the CQC as well, but just at the very basic for the residents and care as well, it's so beneficial. Like you talked about that matching feature. Surely that can help with like loneliness in care homes as well, like because you can pattern match people with people and kind of introduce them to each other and their shared interests as well. So I suppose for our listeners, obviously founders, directors of care homes in particular, the one key area that they're always going to be interested in is the CQC and how a tool like LifeLibrary can help them improve their ratings. And you went into it but in more detail, like what are the key elements that LifeLibrary can do to help CQC ratings if used properly? Obviously.
Yeah, I think anyone watching this podcast who is in care at every level will see, even if I miss some when I list them now, should see that what we're talking about is purely resident-centred. I went to the October Care Show in 2023. Sort of slightly worried that it was still an idea. I'd sort of not quite proven the concept. And I was going to think, oh God, there's 300 stalls. I'm going to walk through here and there are 50 life story apps and every other one is going to be resident centered. And I think of the 300 stalls, I found 2 resident centered stalls there. I was sort of horrified but pleased because I thought that's the end of my journey. And I think the resident centered is obviously goes through the entire framework of the 5 pieces of the CQC. But resident centered being number one. With the resident centered, there are bits that are in the 5 parts of the framework. It is giving the resident control, gives them the choices. They can tell the stories they want. They can talk to the carers. They can add interests. It's compassion. It's allowing carers to see the whole person, especially early stages of dementia. It's very difficult. You've got someone who might be upset and you don't understand why, and all you see in front of you is, an aggressive, anxious person. And actually, if you look through, the reason they're now anxious is because they're going back through the years and they're now getting up at 5 a.m. because they used to be a postman. If you don't know that, you're just going to get angry with them. And there is also huge, the 4 billion paid out for early, onset dementia drugs that I think can be avoided. So the good care homes I've spoken to, they know that they used to be a postman. So why don't we give them a post bag and a post hat? They'll get up in the morning, they'll get changed, stay in the room, and they're happy. We've got to learn those stories. So that's another part of the CQC. The other one is obviously bespoke care. As I say, these small sort of micro activities are brilliant, can be done all through the day. You've multi-generational. So we're hoping with technology, because we've all got teenagers. Well, not all of us, but I've got 3 of them. So, when we're on holiday and I take a picture and I'll upload it to Grandma's Life Library, when we get back home, I'll say to the kids, get your iPad, we're going to go and see Grandma. Bring that and we'll talk about Life Library. So we're going to hopefully drive the multi-generational part.
Amazing.
Family interaction is huge. Family interaction and feedback. I think what the CQC have sort of highlighted is that feedback and reviews for care homes are usually pushed by the care home. They'll find friendly families and say, can you please go on carehome.uk and leave a review of the home? And that's all the CQC have got to go on, and what they see on Facebook and Instagram. But on Life Library, we now have a dashboard. So all the interactions that the care home have had with their resident, all the pictures and activities are on that platform. It's a 1-page dashboard. All the feedback from the family, negative and positive. And it has a touch of a button. All 80 people, CQC, can I see room 5? And it shows you the minutes. It shows you the feedback. Innovation is another big one. Obviously, the CQC want innovation for the right reason. I assume we'll touch on that at a point. And the other big one, I think, is equity to access of care. So if you are having an activity that is mainly for 80% of the residents who are mobile, who are able to get out of bed and go to the hall to do that activity, fantastic. But the 20% who are in their rooms, haven't got the function to go to the halls, Life Library gives that equity of access because it is a bit of tech on an iPad. You go into the room, you can go into the hall. Anyone in that care home can use Life Library. And it should give them all the same experience, wherever, if they're living well with dementia or not living so well. And that's the equity of access. So I think we touch about 30 points of the 5. I can't list them all, but I think I've touched them. And I'm hoping that people listening to this will understand where we're coming from.
Absolutely. And about the people that are listening to this, the people that you potentially talk to day in, day out when you come to selling the product to care homes to improve their person-centered care. What do you say to care homes about the specific challenges that it can help solve for care homes? Which are the USPs in your mind?
Well, I think the USP is to make every person there, as I say, make it a more social place.
Yeah.
It is what I'm really hoping is that, the carer who's having a rubbish Monday morning might not want to go to work. But actually said, I said I'll talk to Bob about his football days. I want to go in and see Bob.
Yeah.
Everyone will have, a handheld tablet. And just on the way from your coffee, and you're going to room 7, okay, fine. Let's talk about the time in the Lake District in the 1950s. And then you can just talk. And the USP is everyone should get to know everyone. And that is resident carer, resident. And eventually we're in the process of adding all the carers' interests and hobbies. So this is where AI can be really beneficial. It can look across the roster and it can put rosters in of, we've got on floor 2, 80% loved holidays on the beach. And we can find carers for that shift for the next week who love holidays on the beach. And that's where AI can really help digital care plans, I think.
Amazing. Obviously, we've talked about all the benefits and the features of Life Library. Is there any kind of success stories from the care homes that you're already in that you can tell Life Library's already made a measurable impact?
Yeah, I mean, we've now got sort of multiple sort of lines of feedback, but I think the one that actually sticks in my mind the most, while we were in a home onboarding, one of our early homes, sort of prototyping, alpha testing, there was a very upset family member was leaving the home, and she looked over and I said, "Hi, is it possible, I know you're upset, to come and just see what we're doing, just to see what you think of it?" And she said, "I'm not sure." I said, "Well, what's happened?" And she said, "Well, I come here every week with my dad, and all he does is shout at me. He's bored. He doesn't do anything. I don't think he's ever done anything in his life. She said, I don't want to come anymore." And I said, "Right, sit down. We've got a cup of tea." And I said, "Right, okay. What did your dad do as a youngster?" "Oh, nothing." I said, "Well, he must have done something." "Oh, he's a member of the rugby club." "Oh, I think he was captain of the first of the rugby club." oh, and he was in the army. And then so we did about this 10-minute sort of conversation, and she sort of started to think, okay, Dad's done something. And I said, okay, I'm here tomorrow. Can you send me 20 pictures overnight? Just go home and look at the pictures. And she sent about 50 pictures through of her dad's life. So we mocked up her dad's profile, LifeLibrary, and we got a carer to show him. And he was just like, yeah, that's me in the Air Force. You know, he was a bit confused. You know, we're working on that because it was obviously a bit of a shock. But for her to see her dad now talking, and I think it reminded her of her dad, not just this guy who shouts her. And another benefit of LifeLibrary is, I know it's a common bit of feedback, is the families come in, they say, oh, you know, my dad said he's done nothing this week. But now with LifeLibrary, you're getting daily or every other day an update of dad doing art or going to the pub, which some of them still like, thank God. And you can go in, as if he moans at you, say, actually, Dad, I saw you went to the pub on the, oh yeah, I might have done that. So actually it's a record for the families, for something to talk about, and actually to say, Dad, you are, it's good, things are good. So yeah.
It's amazing the power of technology, and in a sense, like the other end of the spectrum. I've got a 3.5-year-old in nursery, and they're on a system called Tapestry. Yeah, and it's pictures. It's like I speak to my son and say, "What did you do today?" Just played, and I look at all the activities and everything he's done. So you can start to bring out that picture, and it actually gives you conversation starters that can lead on to better and more engaging kind of chat about each person's stage. So. Okay, that's interesting. In terms of, let's change gear now slightly and talk about the future of dementia care and technology. Where do you see dementia care kind of evolving in the next 5 to 10 years, and kind of how much will technology play a part, including LifeLibrary?
Well, I think, as I said earlier, I think LifeLibrary is a simple bit of tech, and I'm not saying it is going to revolutionise dementia care. But I think technology that allows someone caring for someone to know more about that person is an easy win. And I think LifeLibrary is an easy win. I've been talking to Cordell, I think you've had on this podcast, Dementia-Friendly Barbers. And what he's doing is so simple, but so impactful. And we are now talking about maybe a collaboration of using LifeLibrary when they cut hair. So that's where technology can help drive better interaction. So I think anything that drives interaction is a yes. I think I've seen some horrifying sort of products where, someone's early stages dementia at home and there's an Alexa in the corner, or not Alexa, or a piece of tech that says, hi, Mum, it's time to take your medication. If you speak to anyone who has looked after someone with dementia, that would horrify them. They wouldn't know where the voice is coming from. So that part of it, I'm sort of hoping doesn't take off, and I don't think it will. But I think tech has to be focusing on sort of halting the disease. That's, fingers crossed where it goes. Tech to help dementia, we've got to be really careful here, because I think AI that can create personalized care plans that involve the resident and learn what is helping and what's not, and it's automatic, fantastic. But if those processes then mean that it's reduced costs for those processes, therefore that we can get rid of carers because we've saved time, that's a no-no. Yeah. So I think tech has to sit alongside interaction. Nothing will ever be a cup of tea and a chat.
Yeah. So, and it's really interesting. I sit here, I often interview care home owners, and one of the biggest issues that we often discuss is getting more young people into the care industry. Yeah. Technology has the power to allow younger people to get more interested and be more engaged in care. And I suppose LifeLibrary is that perfect kind of segue of, now grandchildren, great-grandchildren are actively interested in what's going on with grandparents in care. They will be, engaging with the app and moving forward with it. So I think it's really, LifeLibrary to me seems like a really nice bridge into the use of technology within care over the next 5 to 10 years as well. So.
I think one of the pieces I was going to mention is that I think tech and care sector over the whole, not just for dementia care, should be driving, the younger generation of carers. We hear so many times, I'm just a carer. That's got to change.
Yeah.
You know, if you take it to the top level, it has to become a professional body. You know, I heard stories from carers over COVID that they were in 2-hour queues to try and get the necessities to feed themselves and their families. NHS workers, quite rightly, were going to the front because they had to get to work. But the carers had to rely on a letter from their manager to say, I'm a carer. And a lot of time they were sent to the back. You know, that just shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
The care industry has to be revolutionised. It won't be, I don't think, by this government because they've just pushed it back to 2028, which is utterly scandalous. You know, to drive, you know, the care homes should use technology, TikTok, etc., to go into colleges, to go into schools. You know, one of my ideas with LifeLibrary, I know that some care homes are resource strapped, time strapped. So why not engage with the local schools and colleges who are interested in history, but, you know, might be doing Duke of Edinburgh or some sort of work experience needed, bring them into the home. Obviously do all your DVR checks, etc. But to get them to sit with 10 residents over an hour, record their life stories, get to know them, and that will teach the carers who come in later just what that person's about. So I think we can use tech to sort of integrate and connect a whole community.
Absolutely. And you've mentioned it before about storytelling, but what role do you think storytelling will play in making dementia care better in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think as more research comes out, I don't think I'm allowed to say that storytelling will sort of reverse or slow dementia, but I think we can say cognitive stimulation and life reminiscence work plays a huge part of that. I think music is vital for that. So one of our new functions are when you bring up a picture of Grandad in 1951, AI will search for the top 10 songs of 1951. We won't have the ability to play it because of licensing, etc. But the carer can put on any music the resident likes that fits that picture, and that will be super powerful. And I just think everyone loves telling a story. You know, you've gone in. You know, you're in marketing. You love telling stories.
Yeah.
You love listening to stories, and I think it's how it makes someone feel. And I always think asking people's advice. But I think when you're looking after the elderly, you need to know some of it. Because if you ask me, tell me about football, I'll tell you. Because, you know, I'm living it, I'm there, I've got kids. But, you know, if someone who's 85, 90, you're asking that question, it's like, oh, I'm not sure what to say. But you could say, oh, I see you played football in 1960 for Bolton Wanderers. Tell me about your time. And here's a picture of you playing. And that is just super powerful. And I think I'm working with a gerontologist, Miranda Quinney, and she's studied sort of storytelling for 15 years and how it helps sort of living well. And it's fundamental. You know, there's the reason LifeLibrary name came around because there's a East African tribe, and they believe from the moment you're born, you have to teach the next generation because of food, water, etc. Because they're nomads. And they say when an elderly person dies, a whole library burns to the ground. And that's where I got LifeLibrary from. And I think our elderly got so much to teach us, but we're just too scared to ask. We're too, let's go on the internet. That's sort of, AI can find stories and experience, but someone over there lived it, you know, and that's essential.
Talking about learning from those stories and kind of giving advice to care homes when it comes to LifeLibrary. What are some tips that you can give care homes when it comes to improving personal-centred care?
I would say don't follow the crowd. Don't see a system that's working in one place, a technology system, and say, right, that's going to work for us. Because I think I'm seeing a lot of tech services being bought by CFOs, CEOs, and they haven't actually spoken to, you know, the care teams, which is, you know, and that drives a wedge between, you know, how a good care home should run. You know, you should work as a team from the catering to the CFO, and just implementing something on someone doesn't work. So don't follow the crowd. What was the other one? Include families. I think if you want to look after someone to be properly resident-centered, the person who probably knows them the best outside of themselves is their family. If you don't involve the family, then I don't see how you'd get to know someone, and I don't know how you'd be person-centered. The other one is don't assume that you, because someone's old, they weren't young. You know, and also you need to know, you need to know about that era. Don't just say, okay, this is a care home. What you've got, I think what we're forgetting is, I think the care homes are quite twigged that as time goes by, you get a new generation of people into care homes. So, in 2000, people were born in the 1920s. So Frank Sinatra, jazz, etc., was relevant and gone with the wind. But now you've got people who are born in the 50s in care homes that grew up with the Stones, punk, in the 70s. They don't want to listen to Frank Sinatra. Sorry, care home.
Yeah.
Sinatra.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I would just get to know the person and make sure you know what's relevant to them.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what LifeLibrary does. It'll have their music choices. It has to be bespoke and person-centered.
Yeah. It's a great point. And on the other end of that, when care homes are implementing this technology, how can they make sure that the technology they implement helps them maintain that human touch, if you will?
I think a good system should drive interaction between carer and resident. So with our system, it notes the minutes that are spent, the sessions and the good positive reactions and the negative ones, because we've got to be careful of keep showing the same picture that upsets someone. So our system will, at the end of every session, you can rate pictures negative or positive. So over time, only the positive ones are at the forefront. I just think, as I say, you can't beat a cup of tea. You've just got to, if the early on, I think when tech came in, a lot of these companies, I won't name them, said, we free up time. Our processes are improved. You've got another extra hour a day with your... I think some of that's a bit false. I think some of these platforms now are so complicated with so many tick boxes. Carers are saying, I've got less time because I've got to check the doors closed, got to check the car. There is so much. Just make sure that the tech, I think the place for AI and tech is in the logistics side, keeping someone alive and living well. And for this big, large learning machines to personalize the digital care plans. But then the tech coming in on the resident center side has to drive interaction. And it has to have those micro events, bursts of energy for everyone, care and resident, which make the home more social.
Perfect. Moving on, let's focus on your
God.
journey and kind of business growth, because we're always interested. We want to understand how businesses, how care homes grow, and especially lessons learned. So what has been your biggest learning experience in building LifeLibrary?
I think I was slightly naive on timelines, probably a bit optimistic. I thought I'd sort of reinvented the wheel and everyone would sort of open arms, welcome me in. I'm realizing that care homes, care groups are extremely complicated sort of machines. So I think what I've learned is just to take my time. And I've learned, you need to probably touch someone 7 or 8 times to get them to sort of notice you. And you have to do that. I always thought marketing, was a black art. Even my wife, even though she was head of marketing for a charity, I don't need marketing. But once I'd got the product, I suddenly realized me knocking on the door and phoning wasn't enough. That's 2 touches.
Yeah.
So then I needed the socials. And I just realized it takes time, but it doesn't mean your product fail or success. It just takes longer than you think. So I spoke to one large group and they said, we love it. We are going to integrate it into our tech cycle in 18 months. And I was like, 18 months? I thought it meant 18 days.
Yeah.
And that's one of them. And the other one is sort of finding the right person to talk to. I think you can waste a lot of time. The way I did it, first of all, I was contacting CEOs, CFOs, directors, etc. They're extremely busy people. My email, which I'm sort of waiting for a response, is probably down on their list. And what I realized, all our focus groups early on were with carers and managers who absolutely loved it. A lot of them said, where's this been? Why haven't we had it before? But when you go into the care settings, they're not the decision makers. So I think that was where my naivety came from, was everyone loves this, but the decision maker is, I would say, have a look at your project, your platform, your product. Say, right, who do I need to speak to? Who am I building this for? And what's the way in? But also just relax, and it takes time, as you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
But momentum,
Fully agree.
But momentum, like a snowball. I know it's a well used sort of saying, but it does. Once you get 1, 2, and I think whether we're going to touch on it is you can't beat feedback, you can't beat reviews.
Yeah,
and I think the care sector, they talk. As you said earlier, you've had people in here mentioning LifeLibrary. You've had Adele from Tanglewood who's mentioned it. And it just you build that momentum, and suddenly they'll say, "Oh, actually, why don't you speak to blah blah?" And I think I'll give the analogy of the golfer. He got a hole in one. I think it was Jack Nicklaus. And one of the interviewers said, that was lucky hole in one today. And he said, well, funnily enough, the harder I work, the luckier I get. So I think that's where, as a startup, you have to work your butt off. And then you do have to hopefully rely on a little bit of luck. You need to be a meeting where all 5 of them, through a different channel, might have heard of LifeLibrary. And they go, why don't we give it a go? Yeah. But I've had to work really hard to get every single one in the room to have heard of LifeLibrary.
Yeah. What's the one piece of advice that you'd give to care home operators looking to adopt innovation into their homes?
I think the key here is to talk to your carers, talk to your care teams, because most of them would have worked with multiple tech, multiple platforms. And it's funny when I speak to someone, I've used that and it doesn't work. And then they sort of go to work the following day and that platform has been bought and they're like, oh my God, it doesn't work. I think, there's a lot of big sales pushes from big companies. And I think, as I say about not following the crowd, if you talk to your staff, say, have you used this platform? What does it give? What are the pros? What are the cons? Does it fit what we're trying to achieve? I think that would be my advice. And have teams within teams. Just say, okay. So I was in a care home and I was talking to Tony, the maintenance man, and I said, do you talk to the residents? Do they get involved in the DIY? He went, yeah, I've got 5 of them. They all come on my rounds and they help change lives. I said, does anyone know about this? He went, no, don't tell anyone. I said, well, okay, fine. What happens if you had a system where you could log those interactions and it could be, oh wow, that'd be amazing. And that was another way of me talking to someone who's not up front in the care team, but is vital to the care home. He said, yeah, I have a great chat with Alan. He changed some drawers the other day. And I just like, the families would love to know that. And it's just about talking to every single member, front of house. They probably have more interaction with families than anyone. Talk to them. What would help? What would help you? Yeah. And I'm hoping that all the front of house now become ambassadors for LifeLibrary. So in the time when there's no family visiting, they can sit and go, oh, okay, that resident needs a bit of work there. And so you could just find that. And so that front of house person who just sits the front now knows everything that's going on through a very simple piece of technology. And that would be it, I think.
Brilliant. Okay, tough question.
Yeah.
If you could change one thing about how the care industry is currently operating, what would that be?
Well, I'm not going to get into the politics.
No.
Because I think we could be here for a long time.
Yeah.
I think the care industry, I don't think it's a problem, but I think one way that they could help themselves and solve, the crisis that's hitting us, I think it's staff shortage. I think it's the way people, younger generation, see care. And I think they should be doing more to drive it. I think we touched upon it earlier with school interaction. I've worked for another tech company that helps sort of young people and companies. So they might not be the most, academic. They might not be looking at university. There are tech platforms out there that would help a care sector. They sponsor 8 local schools and they show them what a career in care could be. So I think people just think carer, but you've got a carer, then you've got a team manager, then you've got manager, then you've got director. There are career paths, and I don't think that's been shown properly by the care sector. And I think they could do more. I think you can't just rely on the government sorting this mess out, because I think pushing it back 4 years has not helped. And I think just use technology and everything you've got, your marketing. I was thinking on the train, talk to your local schools. What have you got going on in their history at the moment, or English? Oh, we're studying the Cold War. We've actually got 2 residents who lived in Moscow in the 60s. Would you like them to come into talk? Yeah, I'd love them to come to talk in. and a carer comes with them and explains, the care home. You've got to communicate and connect with your younger generation. Otherwise, it's going to get, Brexit made it harder. And I think, that would be my one piece of advice. Look for your home to be the centre of a community and link with all parts.
Brilliant. Finally, now you've worked with a lot of care homes now. In your opinion, what do the best care homes you work with have in common?
They work as a team. Yeah, there's no one who doesn't understand the vision. I've been to some care homes that you would probably look at and go, that was built 50 years ago, I'm not going there. And actually you go through the door and the care team are just off the charts good, because they work together. There is no sort of them and us. They don't go, the manager's coming, let's hide. It's hi, we're doing this. Okay, that's brilliant. And also I think across groups they work as teams. So I've seen some that the lifestyle lead in one home of a group is doing something totally different to the other lifestyle. That's not working. This is working, but they never talk. So what we do on LifeLibrary now, anyone on the LifeLibrary platform, so Julie Churchhouse, who works for me, ex-care manager, now just brilliant in everything care. So we have an open Zoom call on Friday for an hour. Any one of the lifestyles or care team can join the Zoom and say, we've got an issue with LifeLibrary, how can we help? Because at Christmas, we thought it'd be brilliant. So we emailed all the families on LifeLibrary. We said, please add a book of my favourite Christmas. So the families put in lots of photos about, mum and dad's Christmases of past, gone. And, so the carers just, mocked up some Christmas things. And that was all. The whole care home works as a team. I know it sounds easy, but I don't think it is. And you've got to look after your staff as well. Hopefully the AI rostering will do that. Why is Sally looking really, tired? Well, she's been on nights for 3 weeks. That shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
But Sally should have the confidence to say, I've been on nights, I want to come off. Just it's communication and working as a team. But that's, every business. But I know every business has challenges. So
brilliant. I think that's great. We've learned hell of a lot around LifeLibrary, around person-centered care within dementia care and how your product can help. Before we finish, is there anything else you want to say?
No, probably just Happy New Year, everyone. And I hope 2025 goes well. Let's all work together as a sector. There are some great things. As I said, dementia-friendly barbers are doing incredible work. And we've got Bailey at Be Great Fitness. Those simple things can make a huge difference. So don't always focus on the large gains. The small gains are very important as well. So let's all work together. I think the more we talk, the more we connect on LinkedIn, the more, we talk to people like you on the podcast, I think it can only help. It's not them and us, it's us as a sector. And I think work together, we can make it better.
Totally agree. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you.